Hello and welcome to Go For It. I am your host, Paul Gannon. For the next hour, we will be talking sports and having fun doing it with all your ideas, all your opinions, and all your beliefs. And of course, as always, you will get a heavy dose of my opinion. So we got a great show lined up for you today. Expected to be joined by Hall of Famer Willie Roaf. The great Willie Roaf will be joining us. Talk about what we saw last week. Brady, Brees and the Saints, Mahomes and the Chiefs. Got a lot to talk about with Willie, so we'll talk that. And of course, before we get there, we got a lot to talk about. And I want to talk about the Clippers. And I'm going to start with the Clippers. We're going to talk about the NBA playoffs. And the NBA playoffs out there in Orlando, out there in the bubble, has been a lot of fun. And just like we expected, I mean, coming into the NBA bubble, you knew there was going to be some surprises. It was only a matter, it was bound to happen because here's the reality of the situation. It's no home court advantage. It's a neutral court, and whatever happens, happens. And so without home court advantage, it's now up in the air and anybody can get it done. Anybody can win. And just like I look at Toronto and Boston, when Boston was up 2-0 in that series, I said, you know what? That series isn't over. There's still a lot of basketball to be played because it's a neutral court. Now, when Denver was down 3-1 to the Clippers, well, yeah, I said it was over. And when Denver was down 3-1 to the Clippers, at that point, me, you, everybody else was preparing for Clippers-Lakers. That's what we've been preparing for. That's what we've been waiting for, and that's what we were preparing for. We were preparing for Clippers-Lakers. And then Jamal Murray happened. Then Nikola Jokic happened. I mean, all those guys happened. And then out of nowhere, a series that you thought was over, before you know it was a seventh game. And then in that seventh game, Clippers, just like all the other games in that series, I mean, if you watch that series, right, it was crazy. The Clippers went up 3-1 and in complete control. And it's like, you remember 2015 Clippers and Rockets. I mean, they were in complete control, up 3-1. Yes, Doc Rivers was there. Yes, Doc Rivers was the coach. And again, they found a way to blow it. And the funny thing is, they were up 19 in that game. Up 19 in that game against the Rockets. The Rockets would come back and in that game and ultimately win the series. I mean, it's just crazy how that transpired. It's just crazy how that happened. It's just crazy. It's crazy. But you look at this, in this game, in this situation, in this series, and it's crazier. You look at the Clippers. They were up 15 points in Game 5. 15 points in Game 5 to the Nuggets. They were up, and they lose. They were up 19 points against the Nuggets in the second half in game number 6. And you know the funny thing about that game? I was watching the game. Nuggets down by 19 points. And then I turned away, watched a little NFL football. My Eagles were on, so I was watching some Eagles Redskins, and I wasn't too happy about what happened there. But I was watching Eagles Redskins, and I turned back, and I see the Denver Nuggets up by 5 points in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter. I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? The Clippers might just blow it. They might just blow it. And then Game 7. I'm thinking to myself, there's no way playoff P, a.k.a. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, there's no way those guys will let the Clippers lose in a Game 7. No way, right? No way. No how Paul George, and especially Kawhi Leonard. I mean, if you watch Kawhi Leonard last year during that championship run, that run was ridiculous. That was a ridiculous championship run by Kawhi Leonard. And obviously, what he did to my Sixers. Ping, 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 and in. I mean, I'll never, ever, ever, ever forget that. I'll never forget it. And you know, the reality of it is, the funny thing is that shot goes off. If that shot is missed, you know how much things would be different in the NBA? Jimmy Butler probably still would be in Philadelphia. I know that game was going to overtime. Let's just say the Sixers win it in overtime. But Jimmy Butler probably is still in Philadelphia. So the Miami Heat don't happen. The Sixers, I think, matched up very well against the Milwaukee Bucks. And I think they would have beat the Bucks. And then I think they could have got to the NBA Finals. And I think they could have beat the Warriors because we know what happened to the Warriors. Klay Thompson broke down towards ACL. Kevin Durant towards Achilles. So I thought, again, if Kawhi Leonard doesn't happen, the Sixers maybe win the NBA title last season. But also look at this. If Kawhi Leonard would have had the Game 7 that he had with the Nuggets against the 76ers last year, it wouldn't even came down to that ping, 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 and in, because at the end of the day, the game wouldn't have been that close. And it would probably have been close, but at the end, the Sixers would have won that basketball game. And if you watched that game last year, going back to I know I'm kind of going off a little bit here, but going back to that game last year, if you watch that game, a lot of people from the Raptors were scared. And they were missing. They were scared. Kawhi was the only one, in my mind, watching that game that went for it, that was going for it, that was okay with taking each and every shot. I think he shot 39 times in that game. So he was okay with taking shots after shot after shot. He was there for the moment. He was big time in that moment. But and that's what makes what happened against the Nuggets shocking. I mean, it's shocking that Leonard went 6 for 22. It's not so shocking that Paul George went 4 for 16. I mean, as good of a player as Paul George is, and Paul George is a very good player. As good as a player as he is, the last 2 seasons in the playoffs, you got to start questioning Paul George. I mean, he wasn't that great with OKC last year in the playoffs, and they ultimately would lose. They would lose last year, lose to Portland, and then this season he wasn't great. He wasn't great at all. Had some bad moments, and so the Clippers were built to win this season. But I want to say this: as much as they were built to win this season, you got to look at it like this. When LeBron, Chris Bosh, and D. Wade came together, right? They came together, formed the Big Three in Miami. And that group didn't win an NBA title. That group didn't win an NBA title. They came together, those 3 boys, Bron, Bosh, and D. Wade, they came together, and they didn't get it done. They struggled. They got to the NBA Finals, but they struggled in the NBA Finals, especially LeBron James. So if you look at it from that standpoint, it is difficult sometimes when you bring a team together, almost like a super team, if you will. It is difficult to win right away. And, I think for the Clippers, obviously you're bringing this group back. Obviously this group is still going to be the favorites to win an NBA title next season. And obviously, this group still has a lot of ability, still has a lot of talent. But, anything can happen. And who knows what's going to happen in terms of COVID in next season? Will it be a situation now where where teams are in a bubble? Will it be a bubble type of situation again in the NBA? We don't know what's going to happen with COVID. COVID is unpredictable. It's a virus. Viruses do unpredictable things. So you don't know. You don't know. But I will say, if this was a traditional NBA season, the Clippers would have had home court advantage against the Nuggets. And in a Game 7, that matters. Home court advantage, the numbers say it and show it. Historically, a Game 7 in your building, if you're the home team, you got a great chance of winning. So the numbers say it. The numbers have said it, that if you have a Game 7 in your building, your chances of winning are greater, are great. I mean, and so if this was a traditional NBA season, we probably would get Clippers, Lakers. Probably would. But credit to the Denver Nuggets. I mean, Jamal Murray is a star, and he's shown that in these playoffs. Jamal Murray is a star. He has shown that if Jamal Murray has shown one thing in the playoffs, he's shown that he's a star. He's a star. And Jokic, that game 7, that game 7 was big time. Triple-double in that game. He did what we wanted Kawhi and Paul George to do. That's what he did. Jamal Murray had 40, and Jokic 16 points, 22 rebounds, and 13 assists. Those type of numbers, that type of production is ridiculous. And that's the type of production you want out of your star in a game 7. That's what you want. And the funny thing is, Jamal Murray with his 40 points outscored George and Kawhi Leonard combined. He outscored those guys. So that's a testament to Jamal Murray, but it's also a knock on George and Kawhi Leonard and what they did in that particular game and what they did in game 7. That's a knock on those guys. Those guys, that's a knock. And so now at this point, you have the Lakers and the Nuggets. And I look at this series at this point, and I look at these playoffs at this point, I think it's the Lakers to lose. I really do. I think this is the Lakers. I think the Lakers, I had the Clippers initially because I felt like from top to bottom, they had the best roster in basketball. I still feel from top to bottom, they have the best roster in basketball. They have the best roster in basketball. There's no doubt about it. They have the best roster in basketball from the top all the way down to the bottom. And so I thought that type of roster, a roster with that type of depth, two guys who easily could have won a Sixth Man of the Year award in Harrell and Lou Williams. Ultimately, Montrezl Harrell would win it. Those guys and what they brought to the table, you thought, again, top to bottom, they had the best roster in basketball. And I still believe that's the case. And here's the thing, usually in basketball, the best team wins. The best team usually wins in a 7-game series in the NBA. Now, when you have a bubble type of situation, we have a situation now where it's a neutral court. We have a situation now where there's no home court advantage. Well, obviously that changes things. That changes things a lot. So you could be in a situation a la the NFL where I don't feel like the best team always wins. And Major League Baseball, I don't feel like the best team always wins. In hockey, I don't feel like the best team always wins. Major League Baseball, you can ride a hot pitcher, give you a bunch of different starts, and take you home. Hockey, you can ride a hot goaltender. Football, it's a one-game situation. So anything can happen in one game. Anything can happen in one game. Turnovers happen. That football makes some strange bounces. It takes some strange bounces from time to time. So anything can happen in terms of when we talk about football. So when you look at it from that standpoint, that's why I say in those particular sports, baseball, football, and hockey, the best team doesn't always win an NBA title. It doesn't always win a title. But in the NBA, the best team usually wins. The best team, that the team that has the best, most talent, and is assembled correctly, usually wins in a 7-game series. It's just the way it happens. But again, with the bubble, with no home court advantage, hey, it's up in the air at this point. Now, I believe the Lakers are going to win, but I can't say that definitively. You look at the Miami Heat and what they've done in these playoffs. Do you think they do that if there's a traditional NBA schedule, an NBA situation with home court advantage and things of that nature? I don't know. I don't know if that necessarily happens. So It was a great series. I mean, what the Nuggets did was great. Obviously, the Game 7 was a dud from the Clippers standpoint, but it was a good series. And the Nuggets, they have that never say die attitude. Down 3-1 against the Utah Jazz, they find a way. Down 3-1 against the Clippers, they find a way. And obviously, anytime you come back from 3-1, it's impressive. But, and obviously coming back from 3-1 against the Utah Jazz was impressive. But what they did against the Clippers was even more impressive when you consider the talent that the Los Angeles Clippers have. When you consider that talent, man, what happened is even more impressive. So, again, with the Clippers, what happens? Now, Montrezl Harrell is a free agent, but I think they're going to do anything. I think they're going to do all they can to bring him back. He's an important component of what they do. A big-time scorer off the bench, 18 points a game off the bench, a guy who gives you instant offense, rugged, great on the pick and roll. You want him back. And obviously the Clippers have deep pockets. Steve Ballmer is not afraid to spend the money. So I think obviously, I wouldn't say obviously, but I think they're going to find a way to bring Montrezl Harrell back. They need him. Now, why do I say that they can't win an NBA title without Montrezl Harrell? I think they still could next season. But again, what he brings is important. Obviously, George and Kawhi Leonard will be back. And I look at those guys, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard's Kawhi Leonard. He's going to put up big-time numbers. He's going to do what he's got to do. He's one of the better players, one of the greatest players in this league at this point. You can make an argument for Kawhi Leonard being the best player in the NBA, but you can argue maybe he takes a little bit of a hit after what happened in Game 7, where he was off. But, again, you have Kawhi and you got Paul George. And we could talk about Paul George's struggles in these playoffs, but at the end of the day, he's still a very good basketball player. So, obviously, you have those two guys. The Clippers will be in the mix. Lou Williams, they got 10 guys under contract. So they pretty much have their whole basketball team back. They'll pretty much have most of their guys back. Obviously, they're going to have to make some decisions. Marcus Morris, I don't know what's going to happen with him. He made $15 million this year. We'll see. I mean, the Clippers have some decisions to make. And, again, they have deep pockets. Steve Ballmer has deep pockets. So I think he's going to do whatever he has to do to construct a championship caliber basketball team. But it's obviously a disappointing, and the Clipper curse is real. I mean, after what happened in Game 7, after what happened in this series, you can make an argument that the Clippers curse is real. And if you were on the fence about the Clippers curse, you can jump off now. It's real. It's real. I mean, 3-1, down 3-1. I mean, up 3-1 against the Rockets and losing 2015. I mean, it's real. It's real. In this particular series, up 3-1, it's real. This curse is real. The Clippers curse is real. The franchise is cursed. There is no getting around it. They are cursed. And if this doesn't show you that they're cursed, I don't know what else will. But with all that being said, even though they possibly could be cursed, this team will be a favorite next season. They will be a favorite. Jimmy Butler. I want to go away from the Clippers. I got to talk about Jimmy Butler. And I might start crying. I might get a little emotional when I talk about Jimmy Butler. So please, please, please bear with me. If I start shedding tears, bear with me. As a lifelong 76ers fan, let's get that out of the way right now. As a lifelong 76ers fan, last season with Jimmy Butler, I love that man. I loved that man. That man, the plays that he made, he's gritty, he's grimy, he does it all. I love Jimmy Butler. He's a big shot taker and a big shot maker. He makes plays on both ends of the basketball court. His grittiness is one of the reasons the Miami Heat are up 2-0 against the Boston Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. His grittiness is one of the reasons the Miami Heat easily can make it to the NBA Finals, and I don't want to doubt him at this point. But Jimmy Butler, you watched him last night, the plays that he was making, defensively the plays he was making, the steals and the things that he was doing. And oh my gosh. And then as you look at the Sixers, what would the Sixers be with Jimmy Butler? Jimmy Butler did what Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid could not do. He did what Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid could not do. He's a closer. Jimmy Butler is a closer. He's a guy that can get his shot anytime he wants it. Ben Simmons obviously cannot do that. As very good as Ben Simmons is, third-team All-NBA, All-Star this season. As good as Ben Simmons is, and all the things that he does, whether it's the steals, whether it's the straight-up defense that he plays, the guy does it all. Big-time passer, does it all, except shoot. He still refuses, he's still reluctant to shoot a jump shot for whatever reason. I mean, the stroke isn't that bad. Now, I will say there's just awkwardness to his offensive game. The jumper, I don't know if I ever envisioned him being just a guy that's going to – his jump shot is just awkward. It's an awkward jump shot. And his offensive game is awkward. Awkward and for the most part effective until you get to the playoffs. And we've seen what happened to Ben Simmons in the playoffs when the competition ramps up. When the competition ramps up. Because you look at Ben Simmons and you look at what he's done in the playoffs. First round, dominant, because he's dominant because he's better than those guys that he's playing against. He's playing against lower-seeded teams. The first year against the lower-seeded Miami Heat team, the Sixers were better than the Miami Heat. So Ben Simmons was able to do what he had to do and played well. Last season against the Brooklyn Nets, again, the Sixers were better than the Brooklyn Nets. Ben Simmons was better than anybody on that court. So you look at Ben Simmons and you look at what he did. I mean, he's a very good player, but there are some issues with his jump shot. We'll table that discussion now. We're going to bring in a guy, Hall of Famer, the one, the only, Willie Roaf. Willie.
Paul, how you doing? Let me get this thing lined up right.
Take your time. Take your time.
All right.
Willie, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How you been doing?
Doing well, doing well. So, let's get right down to it. So, you saw last week Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they went into New Orleans. Brady had some moments, but he also had some bad moments. Good moments, bad moments. It was an uneven game for Tom Brady. What did you see out of Tom Brady?
I saw a guy that was kind of was trying to fill himself out. They couldn't establish the run. He looked good early. They drove right down the field. He looked good early, and then after that part, it seemed like it kind of messed up. And you expect that with a team that hadn't really been together for a while, and everything that's going on. So I expect them to play better. I expect Tom to get better. But a couple of them passes he shouldn't have thrown.
So you're not concerned. I mean, he's 43 years old, and at some point, 43 has to look like 43. So you're not concerned.
No, I'm not concerned. I will say, as they get better, they got to get the running game going, the play action game going. If they're going to be successful, they got to run the ball. They weren't able to run the ball. They didn't get O.J. Howard too much involved. Gronk didn't do a lot. So, I just think it's growing pains when you're going against one of the top NFL offenses in the league and you're going against Drew Brees and them guys been together for the last 10 years.
Right. So you look at the Saints and a team that beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How were you impressed with what you saw? Brees was solid, 18 for 30, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, nothing special, but a solid performance out of Drew Brees and a solid performance out of his team. The defense played well, created turnovers, had a pick 6 against Tom Brady. So how do you look at the Saints after week 1? Were you impressed by their performance?
I like that performance. I like them getting the win. I liked what I saw in the defense after the second quarter, the way the defense picked it up. I really liked the way they got after him, the way they did up front. And hold on, Paul. My dog's here, the mail's there. So I like what they did. Again, they got to run the ball better. I like Kamar, them getting him involved with the passes and the screen, him getting the touchdowns. But again, they got to run the ball better. Murray didn't do a whole lot. I don't know the stats for running the ball, but they got to run the ball. They used the tight end a lot. I didn't see Emmanuel Sanders do a whole lot, but Cooks, the tight end, had a real good game. He's played big for him, so he's using the tight end. But I think they're going to get better. Let's get Michael Thomas healthy. Let's get Emmanuel Sanders involved. But we got to run the ball better.
Let me ask you this. Looking at Drew Brees, and we know this issue that he ran in over the summer, some of the comments he made about kneeling for the flag, the national anthem, I should say. Are you not surprised, but did you think they would get over that? Did you think they were going to be able to get past that?
I think they got past it after what Drew did, the way he stepped in the forefront to address things, and I think he got in front of the team and was very apologetic. I heard he was, very emotional in front of the team. So I think after he did what he did and was very apologetic, yes, I think it took him being apologetic and him being the forefront and really getting out there talking about it, or I don't think they would have gotten over it.
Did you expect them to get over it?
Yes, with Drew Brees. Oh, yeah, I did. Because he's such a good guy. He does so much stuff in that community, Paul. He does a lot in the community. He's been such a stand-up guy in the league, so I expected him to get over it. He made comments before he really thought about it, because I guess he didn't realize that our ancestors fought in the war too, and when they came home, they weren't treated like his ancestors. They couldn't go in certain establishments. They didn't let them have a GI Bill. They didn't have stuff that the others got to have when they got back from war. So it was a double standard there. So I think that I don't think he understood all that, and that these other guys, families that fought in the war too. So they came back to a different situation than that his family did. And I think after he had those conversations with them, he understands.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and to your point, I think Drew Brees did deserve the benefit of the doubt. Now, do I think he believed what he said at that time? I do think he believed it, but I do think at the same time he deserves the benefit of the doubt to make it right. And then at this point, it appears that he's doing that. So you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, another one of your teams, got off to a great start against the Houston Texans. They look the same. I mean, the Chiefs look the same. They look like the same team that won the Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers. Did you see that?
I think they look the same. I think with that little running back from LSU, they might look a little better. I mean, they look explosive. I was very surprised at the quality of football we had, especially a lot of those football games that first week, because I've seen teams play preseasons for 4 weeks and not look that good. So I think sometimes you come out of training camp and guys are beat up and their bodies are beat up. They look fresh. They look ready to go. The Texans didn't look as good as I thought they would. The line is still having some of the same problems, and they paid Tunsil's the highest paid tackle in the league now, highest paid lineman in the league, but they still had problems up front protecting. But I thought the Chiefs looked very explosive. I think that kid, the kid Clyde, the kid from LSU, really gives them another dimension, and he can catch the ball out the backfield. They really didn't use him. But with all the weapons and the way they can spread it around, and Sammy Watkins has to stay healthy, and they have the other kid out, and then they have the kid, the little punt returner, number 17, Hardman. This is his second year, so he's getting better. And you got the cheetah. I mean, how do you stop if they can run the ball like they ran it efficiently and can run the stretch play and keep people honest, the zone blocking scheme, which they've had problems with at times, it's going to be tough to deal with them. Now, the issue is they got a bend but not break defense. They made plays when they needed to, but I give the advantage to Baltimore because they got some studs on that defense. And I want to shout out to Latex Sneed, the kid they took in the 6th round that had that interception from Minden, Louisiana. That he could have gone to some bigger schools because he wanted to stay close to home, close to his mom. And the kid had a big game, and they got the other cornerback playing for the Raiders. And he had a good game, and he's a good kid. I've heard very good things about this kid, but I just that defense is going to have to get better.
So you think with Hilaire, the big-time running back out of LSU, you feel like this offense is going to be or can be even better than last season?
Better. I think it can be better than last year. The problem is I think when they play against some of these teams, it's going to be who's going to outscore each other and who has the ball out. Now, I do see this about the Chiefs. They had more of a 5-down offense in that game where they were running, and controlling the time of possession. Against teams like Baltimore and some of these other teams that can score points, it's going to be key for them to control the clock later in the game and have more ball control. That's something we had a problem with. We scored real fast, but we didn't have ball control late in games. So it was like we scored 30 points, but you lose. So it's going to be, can they have the ball control and eat the clock and not, you don't have to score a touchdown all the time. You just want to eat the clock and run the clock out or run it down where they can't catch up. And let's see if the Chiefs can do that well this year.
But you don't think that defense is as bad as that defense that you guys had that year, that no punt game in the playoffs? That defense isn't that bad, is it?
No. We didn't have all pros on the defense side of the ball. They got Jones, they got the Honey Badger, they got all pros on that side of the ball. So no. The Honey Badger and these guys can make plays when they got to. Chris Jones is our top 2 or 3 defensive tackle in the NFL now. You got Aaron Donald, you got a couple guys. Geno Atkins, I don't think is the same as he used to be. So I think Chris Jones is one of the top 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 defensive tackles in the NFL, period, right now. And he's long and big. So no. I know they're a lot better than our defense was because they have some more studs over there. We had a group of good players, but not all pro guys like they have.
Barring any major injuries, are the Chiefs still the team to beat?
Yes.
Even with Baltimore out there, Lamar Jackson had a great game against the Browns last week, and to have some studs on the defensive side of the ball. You still feel like the Chiefs with Mahomes, if everything stays right, everything is healthy, they're the team.
It's the Browns, Paul.
That's true.
Can Baltimore run the ball against good defenses, or are they going to be one-dimensional like what happened with Tennessee and slow Lamar down, and then he's got to become a passing quarterback? We know Mahomes can do that. We already know what Mahomes can do. If he has to, he will throw the football. Can Lamar Jackson do it? That's left to be seen.
For sure. And I think we're going to learn a lot about Lamar Jackson from the playoffs. So let me ask you this. Cam Newton made his debut with the New England Patriots last week, and the numbers 15 for 19, 155 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 75 yards on the ground. I mean, Cam Newton might be back. And we talked about this a few months ago. We felt like New England was a great situation for Cam Newton. I didn't expect it to happen. I don't think you expected it to happen, but it's a great situation for Cam Newton and a great opportunity for him to resurrect his career. What did you see out of Cam?
I saw the old Cam in some of those games in Carolina when he was younger. Just eat the clock up, him run the ball, him take over the game, him passing the ball, short passes. Now, will they do that against everybody? No. They'll go after whatever the weakness is. I think he's in a great situation because he's with the best minded head coach there is in the NFL, maybe in history. He's got an excellent offensive coordinator. Those other receivers are going to have to step up. Other than Julian Edelman's getting a little long in the tooth, guys are going to have to step up and make plays. He likes his tight end. He's got a decent line. So I think Cam's going to have a good year. It's ironic that you see a guy that was MVP of the league and nobody wanted to pick him up. And you see some of these quarterbacks out here now. And, I heard stories probably about in training camp with that other quarterback that was supposed to start in front of him. The first practice, he threw 3 picks or something. So I think New England is very lucky they got him and waited around to get him. I think Cam's looking for a payday after this year. He sees how much money these guys are getting. I think you could have a good marriage between him and the Patriots after this year to ride him on out for the next 4 or 5 years. And if Cam is productive, I think you're looking at Cam maybe being Hall of Famer type Cam Newton. If he can put it together for 4 or 5 years, New England would be a great place for him to land and stay. If I don't know if Cam wants to stay there or he's looking for, to just get paid. But if he wanted to be a Hall of Fame type player, that would be a great landing spot for him. I know he's going to want to get paid after this year. Like I said, I just want to see him. I want to see him stay healthy and have a good year. And one thing they said about him, Paul, which always to make you be very good. He's the first one in the building. He's the last one to leave. And I'm gonna tell you, Belichick really respects guys like that.
So let me ask you this. So based on what you're saying, you believe Cam Newton will have a good season, and we know the New England defense is a very good defense. They were a good defense last year. Do you feel like New England continues their dominance of the AFC East with Cam Newton?
They got Buffalo's knocking on the door.
They are.
They got some challenge. They got a challenge with Buffalo.
Yeah, definitely. Buffalo's not going to be. Buffalo's going to be a tough out.
They got a kid. That quarterback up there is the truth too. So he's got another year under his belt. So it's going to be between them and Buffalo.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because again, Cam Newton is only 31 years old and still fairly young. And to your point, it's crazy that the Patriots it's crazy that he didn't really get a job until late in the offseason. It's crazy that Cam Newton has to play for the money that he's playing for. But at the end of the day, I mean, he's got to prove himself again.
I hope he has some incentives in there, Paul. I hope if he's the starting quarterback in the NFL and guys are making, averaging $20 million, I hope he's got something in there where he's making more than $1 million. I would hope so in 2020, But
at the same time, considering the opportunity, sometimes you do got to take that step back to take a big giant leap forward. And so,
to be honest with you, when you go through a tough situation, it's humbling. Sometimes you need that kick in that. You need that kick in the butt to get restarted again.
Right.
When I left New Orleans, it's like after that 9th year with Antonio Brown. When I got hurt and you had to leave and you playing for incentives and you've been the man, sometimes that humble pie will make you hungry again. And I think that's what, he got a new team, a new situation. Like I said, he's 31 years old. He's a quarterback. Can he continue to run like that? No, he can't do that every week. He can do that every once in a while. But he's fairly young, and I want them to take care of him and look at him as a long-term answer, not a one-year rental. So it matters how the coaching staff looks at him, Paul. Are they going to just use him like a one-year rental, or are they looking at him as a long-term guy that they can build something with? And I think that's the approach I would have with him.
And I think it's going to be based off how he plays, how well he plays. I mean, if he does what we believe he is capable of doing, they may look at him long-term. But they do have Jarrett Stidham backing him up, and that appears to be the guy that could be the next guy for the New England Patriots. But again, Cam Newton, only 31 years old. If he goes out and balls and plays big-time football and takes them far, takes them deep into the playoffs, who knows? Who knows?
He doesn't have a lot of weapons at receiver too, Paul. You got to get him some players.
No, he doesn't have the most weapons. That is true. But with that defense, and as good as that defense is, if Cam just protects the football and does what he has to do and plays some solid football, they can make a decent run. Now, there's a team in Baltimore and there's a team in Kansas City that on paper definitely are better. They're definitely better football teams. But again, anything can happen. And Cam Newton, we saw back in 2015 when he was an MVP. I mean, this guy put up some big time numbers, and people think Cam Newton wasn't really all that bad after that season. He didn't duplicate that season, but he really wasn't bad. He was solid. He just, last few years, he was just banged up. He was
Real
hurt.
banged up. He was banged up, and they banged him upside the head in that Super Bowl too. And I think that took a little bit out of him. They should have got some flags. They went after him to take him out, Paul, and they got after him in that Super Bowl. And I think the injuries, and I think he wasn't himself. And I think that last year he took the year off. He needed that to clear the cobwebs and get back right. And I'm excited to see what he does. I root for him. And again, going back to Tom, I mean, how many games, Paul? He's thrown the pick six in maybe the last 3 games in a row. So it's just even when he was in New England, he was throwing a few pick sixes. So, that line's going to have to protect Tom, or either it's going to go real good in Tampa or it's going to go the opposite.
But here's what I'll say with Tampa. The weapons that he has. I mean, Mike Evans, Godwin, Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, Gronk, O.J. Howard. I mean, obviously, if they don't protect, it don't matter. But those weapons, and considering who Tom Brady is, and he is 43 years old, too, at the same time, but with those weapons, I can't see him struggling. I mean, 43 is 43. Let's be clear.
You still got to run the ball, Paul. You still got to. You got to run the ball.
True. And they have. I mean, Ronald Jones is solid. Leonard Fournette, I think, is a very good football player.
They got McCoy. I don't know what McCoy's collecting the check.
We'll see what he has in the tank. But I just think it's gonna. Well, considering he's 43 years old, if he struggles, we can't be surprised. But with the talent that's there, I don't think he will. And I think that Saints defense is underrated. I think they're very, very good. They've gotten better with Jenkins coming back, and they got a Sanders on offense with Jenkins and the other guy coming back, and they got them young boys in the middle. The Saints are real undefeated and underrated, and those guys can get after you up front. So they got some good linebackers. They're going to be tough to deal with. They're going to be a tough out. So let's look at it at the end of the day. Who do you think gets to the Super Bowl, and who do you think wins it all?
You going to ask me that week 1? I really like Baltimore. The defense, what they can do to you, I really like Baltimore. And the NFC, the NFC's tough for me. I don't know the NFC yet. I would say New Orleans. I mean, that's what everybody's saying, but the NFC's tough for me. I like Baltimore in the AFC. I just say I like Baltimore to win it. I mean, you got some teams that can play with them, but it's going to be tough to deal with Baltimore. But in the NFC, I don't have a clear-cut team that I think is that team.
The NFC is interesting. And I would say that, I mean, the AFC is the same way because you got the Chiefs. To me, it's going to come down to the Chiefs and the
it's going to come down to who's got the best record. By that time, Paul, the stadium's going to be packed. They starting off like this now. By the playoff time, it's going to be fans in those seats in those stadiums. I promise you that.
I don't know if I think it's hard to determine that at this point because you're talking about at that point, you're in flu season. So that's another dynamic. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
It's going to be more fans in there than it is now.
Maybe. Because let's look at it. We got the flu. You got the flu out there. You got COVID out there. Now you got 2 different things working.
Well, we got the flu every year, right?
Right, but we COVID in terms of being here in the United States didn't really, jump off until like February, March. So if COVID is still going, and if we get that second wave, and I'm not no doctor, so I don't know if that's going to happen. But
what if they say? What if they say we want to come to the game? We want to be at the game, and they start a petition saying, in Kansas City, they're gonna be like, we want to be there to root our team on. It's going to be more fans wanting to go to those stadiums.
I would agree with that.
This is like this Sunday football games are like going to church for these people. These people, they live in Brees teams.
I agree with that. I think people would take a chance and go. Would I go to a football game? I probably would. I probably would take the chance. Now, I'm not saying, I probably would take the chance. I probably would take the chance, but I don't know if that's wise. I don't know if it's wise. But I probably.
Yeah, again, if you had this before, which I had, do you get it again? Can it be worse? I mean, who knows?
Well, let's talk about your experience with COVID. How was it?
It wasn't great, but it wasn't that. I wouldn't say I got that worried about it. I mean, I got sick. I had like a head cold. It started off as like a sinus, head cold type of deal, and I went to the gym on a Saturday, and the people in the gym, I talked to them later, and they had it, and they were talking to me, and by that Monday, I was feeling it. By that Tuesday, I was going to the doctor anyway, and to do labs, and I was real lethargic, and I had a head cold, and he kicked me out the office. I went straight to urgent care and got the test, the swab, and by that Thursday morning, the health department was calling our house, telling me I need to stay away from everybody, and that was it. They didn't even tell you, they didn't give you nothing. They just said, look, you need to quarantine till August 30th, and that first week, I had a slight fever, maybe 99, 100, and I felt lethargic, but I was walking around the house and stuff. I wasn't going anywhere.
Right.
And after that first week, so let's say that was August, the middle of August, after that Tuesday, I got the test. That Thursday, it came back positive. That weekend was probably the worst of it. By that Monday or Tuesday, I was feeling better. And then my wife got it, and then Angela got it. And then it kicked in on her. And she was moving around and doing her thing, and she could feel it in her upper chest some, so she would get out and walk and move around. We just got a lot of rest. I mean, I was sleeping from 11, 12 to 8, 9, get up for a little while, go back and sleep. So if I got the rest, which helped me a lot. But on the other part, we were just taking over the kind of Sudafed and all that stuff, and that was about it.
Right. Okay. So you beat it. You beat it at the end of the day.
I thank God that I beat it. What they tell me, Paul, if you have some type of lung issues, the diabetics. I know some diabetics that beat it. But if you have some lung issues, some CPOD, some scar tissue with your lungs, or issue like that, and it gets to your lungs, that's when you get in trouble. And on the grace of God, I hadn't smoked a cigar in about 3 weeks before it kicked in on me. But so I really didn't feel anything in my lungs, which was great. And but they say if it gets to your lungs, that's when you're in trouble.
Okay, all right. So you at the end of the day, you were able to get through it, you're able to get by, and that's a good thing. So watching these games without the crowd, is it any different for you?
Yeah, it's a little different, but I mean the football for the first week was good football. Like I said, I've seen more penalties and jumping off sides and teams not looking as coordinated when they played 4 or 5 preseason games the first few weeks. So to me, all in all, the football was very good football for the first week. And I just watched some of the Cleveland game last night, and that was good football. And even the basketball in the bubble. I mean, these have been some good games. And LA, I'm looking forward to seeing how the Lakers do with the Joker and Murray. Those young boys are stepping up, and we're looking forward to seeing what happens. And if LeBron can get a ring, Angela said, my wife said it's not going to be considered a ring, but I consider it a ring. I think this is LeBron's best chance to get another ring. And hey, everybody went to the bubble. Everybody had to deal with the same circumstances. So if they win it, they win it.
And I would say this: with the Clippers out now, I think the Lakers are the favorite at this point. And to your point, I will disagree with your wife. I do feel like this.
It might be a little tougher dealing with this year, right?
I think it might be even more impressive when you consider COVID. But you consider all the circumstances. You consider the racial issues going on out there.
A lot going on.
You got all those things going on. To me, it is impressive. I think whoever wins it, I'm not going to put an asterisk. I'm not going to put a star.
Hey, and I'm going to tell you what, if the Lakers can get past The Nuggets, because this Nugget team they're playing now, like Kenny's been saying, this isn't the same Nugget team they played in the regular season. When they got out the bubble and came back, like Kenny's been saying, it's like the next year for them. The Joker has gotten better. Murray has really turned into a superstar. You got all those good role players. You got Michael Porter Jr. He called him out, but when he called him out, they got that dog in him. Millsap from La Tech picked it back up again. So they're going to be a tough out because Millsap's got that experience. They got some good players. And then you got the Miami Heat, who's got the grittiest team, the most underrated team, Hero. They got that sniper out there. They got oh my God. They got Dragic. They got the big boy in the middle. I mean, if the Lakers win this ring, they're going to get some young up-and-coming teams. And if they're going to win, they better get it done now because them teams are getting better and they're coming.
If the Lakers come out of the West, I believe they win it all.
It's going to probably be – I was saying Boston, but I think it's going to be Miami.
It's probably going to be Miami at this point, but it's hard to say in the bubble. I'm not counting anybody out in the bubble.
Unless Gordon can come back and give him some. He's got some length on him and he can score the basket. So, I mean, I think Miami's a long team. They're good. They got some snipers out there, man. And Kemba's undersized. You got some small guys, and Miami's tough to deal with, man. I mean, they're tough.
Unless a team wins 4 games, I'm not counting anybody out. Unless you're up 3-0, then I'm counting it out. But 3-1, 2-0 with the bubble, neutral site, anything is possible. Anything can happen. We've seen it with the Nuggets.
And that helps LeBron. That's why I say not having all the travel, it helps the older guys. Yeah. The Lakers are the oldest team in there by far. They're a lot older than these guys. Now, JaVale and Dwight got to rest up the last series, so they should be fresh because they went to that smaller lineup. I love that Lakers coaching staff. I think they've done a great job. The way they use, I love Caruso. And Kuzma comes in there. That little Caruso plays defense. He's a little firecracker. But like you said, I think Vogel was the right fit for them. His demeanor, the way he carries them. I think Vogel was a great hire, and the Lakers coaching staff and them have done a good job putting them together. AD has got to be AD, and I've seen him punish Jokic in the regular season. He's got to step up, and if they get Jokic in foul trouble, they got to get after Jokic. And because that kid is the Clippers just weren't big enough. They couldn't do anything with him.
But the Clippers, I mean, that's inexcusable. I mean, they're you could say the Clippers are cursed. I mean, that it's inexcusable what transpired. I mean, you were up 3-1. You were in complete control. You had a 15-point lead in Game 5. You had a 19-point lead in Game 6. I believe you were up 7 at halftime and against the Nuggets. You were in control at points of Game 5, 6, and 7. And you find a way to, and you just throw up.
But once them boys figured out they could beat them, once the Nuggets figure you out, I mean, they never thought they were out the game. And once they turned it up, I don't know if the guys got – I heard that they were talking about they needed a blow in the last game.
I saw that.
I don't know if it's them. They said they got knees or issues. I'll tell you this. For all the whatever they did with the players that rest them during the season, I don't know what's wrong with Kawhi. Just in that fourth quarter, he just doesn't look right. And I don't know. I mean, going forward, I don't know what you do, man. Paul George had that emotional issue, and when you get out there and play, Paul has some good spots, but to consistently do it, you see why the guys that were able to do this for long periods of time and play big in the playoffs consistently. It's hard, Paul. I mean, it's a lot going on. You got to be able to focus in and bring your A game, and a lot of guys can't continuously do that for long periods of time. And even though, all of them have stretches where they don't play as well, but, I mean, look at what LeBron's been able to do, and at the level he's been able to do it was for so long. And a lot of times he was carrying the load. So, I mean, it's going to be – I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the playoffs. I'm rooting for the Lakers, and let's see what happens.
Well, let me counter that in terms of the Clippers. I will say this. When you look at 2011, when the Miami Heat came together, their big three came together, right? They didn't win it right away. They made it to the NBA Finals, but they didn't win it right away. when you bring Clippers on some level, to me, had the best roster from top to bottom. And in terms of Leonard and Paul George, you almost formed a super team on some level. Lou Williams, Montrezl Harrell off the bench. I mean, big-time weapons coming off the bench. When you put that team together, they were kind of like a super team on some level. And it takes some time, a year, for them to learn each other, to know how to play off each other. Now, I will say Paul George came up small. He did. Mm-hmm. And he wasn't very good last year either in the playoffs. So
I will counter that.
A good player.
I will counter that with this. They're getting a year older. Patrick Beverly, Kawhi, Paul, some of the other guys are getting older. It's another year in the books. If you're doing load management this year, then you got to totally reverse it next year. And you got Kawhi calling out the head doc today. I mean, you can't. You're calling out the coach. So, you can't load manage them next year. Then they got to get out and play all 82. Well, LeBron has done every year. LeBron doesn't take games off. LeBron plays. He gets out there and he said he wants to play. So we can't do load management. You got to play basketball.
But I will say, if this was a traditional NBA season where, home court advantage, things of that nature, the Clippers-Lakers probably would be in the conference finals playing each other. With a bubble type of situation with a neutral court, with no home court advantage, anything is possible and anything can happen. And it's kind of like the hottest team can get it done. And the Nuggets, Jamal Murray got hot and Jokic got hot, and that team just, I mean, you can't doubt that team. 3-1 against the Jazz, 3-1 against the Clippers. I mean, you got to win 4 games. You got to win 4 games against that team, no matter the situation. I just feel like in a traditional NBA season, we have Clippers-Lakers. But that doesn't matter, obviously, at this point. COVID has messed up everything. So everything is going to be totally different in basketball. And if they don't get any fans in the NFL stadiums, that's going to be totally different as well. There's not going to be a home field advantage. You wonder, even with the NFL, if COVID does what some people believe COVID will do, possibly. Does the NFL go to a bubble playoff where they just have sites instead of teams having home field advantage? They have multiple sites around the country. That could be a possibility. And at that point, that turns the game into a neutral site situation, and the best team is going to win. So we'll see.
But we still got opportunity to have a vaccine. We got a lot of football to play. If we get a vaccine before the end, then that changes everything. So, it's September. So we still got, they're working on a vaccine. You got October, November, December, January, Super Bowl in February. You got a lot of stuff that can transpire in this country. You got an election. You got them working on a vaccine. So, hopefully we get everything going better before it comes time for the playoffs. We'll see. I know they had a setback with one of those vaccines, but they back to doing stuff again. So we'll see what happens. But I think that they're treating the COVID better. People are still dying, and not like they were. I mean, the hospitals, I don't think it's as bad as it was, a few months ago. But everybody out where we are, everybody's wearing masks and stuff more now. So I just think especially if you're older or whatever, people need to be smart. Wear masks. Don't be out here in a big, large group of people. I mean, just it's kind of common sense, right? I'm not going to a rally with 3,000, 4,000 people.
I would say it's common sense for a 44-year-old man like myself and a man of your age. It's common sense. But if you're 24, 23 with a bunch of money and you have an opportunity to get into those streets, you're probably going to get into those streets. So yeah, it is.
I don't think they get out in the streets like they used to, because you don't have to, Paul. They can go to the internet. They can go to the DMs. They can go to if they want. This is what I'm saying. If you got money like that, these guys now got big houses. They can have the people come to them. They can have the DJ, the liquor, and I got the house. I got the liquor. I got the DJ. I got all my pro teammates, friends over here. Come to me. Come to me for the party. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to go to the streets. The party's going to the mansions now.
But it's not like doing it the old-fashioned way where you're out and about and earning it instead of
they're coming to you. Yeah, it's different now. They don't. I don't think about it. They're not clubbing no more, Paul. It's not a clubbing scenario. They're going to house parties and doing stuff indoors in houses or different venues where they set it up. They're not having the clubbing situation is way different now.
But even still, if you're bringing X, Y, this girl, that girl, they could bring COVID with them. I mean, so.
You're right.
But I mean, yeah, I think I agree.
I don't think they're going to be worried about it at that time.
That's true, but I do think it is common sense that for us, but I don't think it's common sense for everybody. Not when you're that age, like with that type of money and those type of opportunities. So yeah. So
you saw when James Harden left the bubble, he was at the spot right when he got back to Houston.
There you go.
Which I know somebody that runs with James. James like to have a good time. I'll just say that.
He's young. He's got a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah, so I guess I get it. Willie, absolute pleasure, man.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Take care of yourself. Glad you beat that COVID.
I'm trying, man. And I want to wish everybody to stay healthy and positive. Let's have a fair election and let's see who wins this thing fair and square, all this mail-in voting and stuff. I just want a fair election. Let's see who wins and let's get to the next chapter.
For sure. Appreciate it.
All right.
Hall of Famer Willie Roaf. Pleasure talking to him. You can listen to this show and other great shows, blogtalkradio.com, where you can listen to this show and other great shows. Follow us on Twitter @GoForItGant. Like us on Facebook @GoForItRadio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. For everybody here at Go For It, we hope you have a great weekend. See you later. Take care.